Thanks for the intro, Don.
Gosh. I want to say it wasn't that much longer that I was since I graduated college. One of the panelists come up also, please. So we've had some very interesting content tonight so far. Now that we have the startups in the panel, we continue to accelerate a little bit. So I took some notes while Professor Mooney was talking, and he described how each of the disruptions in question from some of the bigger companies was leading to a benefit for customers. And I thought that they were interesting because they were pretty all over the map. So Mark from Parker talked about basically a disruption that was taking what was a multi-source process for vendors in aerospace and converting it to pretty much a single-source process with 85% market share for Parker. The benefit to consumers, obviously, was safety. Everyone else really talked about benefits to consumers in terms of price, which is an economic benefit. So Tom from Yamaha talked about something that I thought was a little bit surprising. He was disrupting limited supply and taking cool products and enabling better pricing for consumers. Russell from Nissan talked about disrupting the retail purchase of fuel. And of course, that would lead to better economics and pricing. And then, Matt basically talked about disrupting everything. So we'll look out for that clearly expected rank. So let's dig right into the panelists and just start by saying, what are you guys disrupting? Frank, why don't you start?
Hi there. First of all, I don't want to disrupt television watching time, which I think we're all going to be doing a lot of in the future. It's up to Matt. I'm in the medical device industry. I have been an executive for a long time in that field, both with large companies and in startups. What we're disrupting is cardiac surgery. We are developing tools. This was licensed technology from UCLA and Mayo Clinic. Licensing tools to enable cardiologists to look into the heart, to go into the chest without cracking the chest, through a small puncture right below the breastbone, through the sternum, and with direct visualization and small instruments, be able to work on the heart from the outside in, just like a heart surgeon would, but in an outpatient procedure without having to spend 5 days in a surgery and have open heart surgery.
All right, so France, that's a great description of what you guys do. But what are you disrupting? What are you changing?
We are changing for the patient, a patient who has to have currently open heart surgery for a lot of the different kinds of procedures, for instance, heart valve replacements, are now going to be able to have electrophysiology procedures and cardiology procedures just through a puncture in the heart. That means for the payers, these patients will be in a single day, at the most overnight. And for the patient, same thing. They will not have a zipper down their chest anymore. And the physicians will be able to look directly. There is no direct visualization available. The military is also interested in what we're doing for
I want to cut you off there, France. We're going to move right on to Jeremy and Bill. Jeremy, what are you guys disrupting?
Hi, my name is Jeremy Snyder. I'm the general manager for the Southwestern U.S. for Tesla Motors. The industry that we're disrupting is the automotive industry. In 2003, we started with the idea that performance and efficiency don't need to be mutually exclusive. With advances in battery technology, we've been able to revolutionize the automotive industry, starting off at the top of the market with the Tesla Roadster, the pure electric sports car that does 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds, has a range of 245 miles per charge, and charges in as little as 3.5 hours. The other part that we are disrupting is the retail environment itself. Unlike the other automotive manufacturers, we actually own all of our distribution around the world. So we're not only developing the technology, but we're distributing it. So we can run a much leaner, more efficient organization and cut out the middleman, which as a byproduct makes the purchasing experience more enjoyable.
All right, Daniel, give us the 1 minute of your company. Tell us what you're doing.
Good evening. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here.
We like to think that on a good day with the tailwind, we are disrupting the way that medical intervention is done by changing the way that diagnosis is done, by finding early, very early disease while it's still involved.
Great. Briggs?
Yeah, we're at the algae business, and what we're actually disrupting is carbon capture. That's really what's going on. It's that the huge change going on is that for the first time we can realistically absorb huge amounts of carbon from the fossil fuel emitters, which, by the way, aren't going to stop emitting fossil fuel anytime soon. So CO2. I mean. So that's kind of the space that's being transformed, and it will in fact build the greatest competitor to petroleum through that process.
Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about sort of whether big companies or small companies are in a better position to disrupt markets. But how much is too much disruption in this bite-off? When you guys think about what it means to be disruptive, where do you say, that's too revolutionary, we need to be a little bit more incremental? Because we heard a range of answers with regard to that in the first half. How do you guys think about it? Daniel?
Well, first of all, when lives are at stake, I don't think that anything is much, even if you save one life. And it turns out that the standard that we would like to disrupt is very much as impressive as it should be even by today's capabilities. And therefore, it gives incentive to develop and things.
France, you're also in the life science business.
Sure. Disruptive technologies in medical take years. Coronary stents took about 25 years from the first conception or thought of them to really catch on, and it's not until huge clinical trials come out with great results that the adoption occurs. Physicians are very conservative.
Okay, so now Jeremy, you guys are in a business that traditionally has 7-year adoption cycles, and yet the company just managed to go public recently, but you're also cooperating with other companies. How do you think what's too much disruption? Where do you draw that line?
Well, good question. I think that
All right, think about that. We're going to come back to it. I can see Rich has an answer.
Scott, disruption is like a pastry shop. You can go, oh my God, we can disrupt this, we can disrupt that. And what we found in our company in the early stage was we were just innovating, and we had to go through a focus exercise and go, okay, we're going to disrupt, but we're going to do it as a sharp tool rather than a broad offense, because we don't have $13 billion to work with, and we wouldn't get anywhere even if we did. So the key, I think, is stay highly focused, discipline is the key.
All right, so Russell from Nissan talked about having billion-dollar budgets to do the types of things that they're doing in automotive, but most of the other guys talked about really very short leashes, very short time frames. I think it was 2 weeks, right? Was one of the time frames. Here's your startup, you can have a couple $1,000s. There was skunkworks projects where there was no funding at all. What's some examples of how fast are you guys really moving in the early stages of building your business and validating the market and figuring out if you're on the right track with disrupting that?
Well, very simple. We were sitting in the lab doing wonderful stuff, and we had a process we call business development, but it is actually business prevention. It was our way of pushing everybody off. And but a very innovative company beat down the doors, flew from Australia to our facilities and demanded our product, even though it wasn't ready. And that really accelerated it for us. So the unique situation we're in is we're now doing deals where we're going, hey, we don't have working product, it's not productized, but if you're willing to work with us, let's do it. And they are going for it. And so these early adopter companies, these strategic guys, are grabbing on technology that's half-baked and working with us as partners, and that's making it all happen.
So just like Matt described, we're basically founder of a company who said, well, the customer wants to buy it, and supply chain wants to sell it for them. I know I have to go do it. Jeremy, how did it happen for you guys?
I mean, there was clearly a void in the marketplace. We were looking during the period of, it was prior to the inconvenient truth. It was before the tipping point of people talking about you know, their carbon footprints, and
$4 gallon gasoline.
yeah, it was, you know, gasoline I think was still around $1.50, $1.75 when we looked to disrupt the market because we saw the need for it. And so we were able to bring the Roadster to market in 4 years. We went, the typical automotive, big automotive takes about 7 years. We were able to do it about 60% of the time. With Model S, after our proof of concept with Roadster, we're able to do that in about 4 years.
Francis?
Yes, in the medical, you need to be able to have enough money into the development to have a working prototype to put into the hands of the physicians. And what I like to do is I start with seed capital, some of our own money, my own personal and angel money, and those are friends and family, private individuals, etc. But you've got to see if your concept is going to work. Put it into the doctor's hands before you get a lot of money to keep going.
All right, now it's harder to do that in life sciences. Go ahead.
Actually, in our case, we separated a little bit the innovation part from the adoption. And so in the companies, you can work on the adoption and whatever else is needed in order to have the innovation be adoptable. But the innovation part can be actually carried out in government-funded laboratories. It was actually, the components of it have been carried out by people that were working under the money is no object kind of heading at NASA and DARPA and DOD and the telecommunications industry. So sometimes you can get components that cost billions to develop, and we just kind of fuel them towards what we're doing. And that's the adoption.
What do you guys think about this 2-week launch? Or am I on the right track? Is that enough time? What can you can you get anything done in 2 weeks? Is that a realistic time frame for driving innovation?
Not in the medical device world. We, just like Matthew was saying, we outsource a lot. When you're starting, you have to outsource. We work with engineering firms, etc., and their time schedules. You know, we can throw more money into it and get more of their attention, but as a startup, you rely on it a lot.
Jeremy, obviously your cycles are longer, but are there things that you get done in 2 weeks where you say, we got to make sure we go fast?
Well, I think looking at the company as a whole, from the startup phase, you have a few people working very independently of one another. Otherwise, there's no way to innovate fast enough to keep up with the industry and really be a disruptive technology. And it's interesting because as Tesla Motors matures, we're still very fast moving, but also a growing organization now, a public company. More things happen a little bit slower, but it's the natural life cycle of a startup business.
All right, so Matt described how not being burdened down by the baggage of all that history and all those employees and an established way of doing things created a real advantage compared to the incumbents. Riggs, what's your biggest advantage compared to the big companies out there?
Well, we've got a constant innovation process, as the doctor discussed, where I have my brother, a co-founder, is basically the Steve Wozniak of the company. Doesn't want a job, just wants to invent. And he just sits there and invents. And we have to actively correctly, okay, thank you, because it'll just sort of stuff will be floating around being invented. And so what we figured out, and it took a while because literally there were wars between these different factions. And we figured it out. So just this week he came up with an ethanol process that was brand new and innovative. And it passes the 2-week test, exactly, because it takes long, he's got to have to do a few iterations of testing, and pretty soon it will pass the truth test of going into formal research and validation.
All right, so culture of innovation that gets choked at the right time.
And integrated, exactly.
Franz, what's your biggest advantage?
Well, I think one of the trends in medical right now are virtual companies. And with Skype and with everything we have available to us, we don't have to all be sitting in the same room. So just like Jeremy said, there's a lot of people working on different aspects of the company, multitasking at the same time. And we're way more responsive and reactive than a big, cumbersome company. I worked for $15 billion a year Medtronic, and we got in our own way all the time.
Jeremy, what's your guys' advantage?
Well, it's exactly as I was mentioning. The advantage is we're a very fast-moving organization where we have every individual both working collectively as a team, but really on individual products and projects. So, and communicating enough throughout the organization that we're able to stay synced up, but not so much that we're bogged down.
How many employees do you guys have?
Well, let's see. We have about 1,500 employees now. When I started at the company, I think I was maybe number 75 or so.
It's a lot of growth in a short period of time.
It is.
What's your biggest advantage compared to the big company?
We are tiny, we just have 8 employees right now. I think, as stated, it depends on who's doing innovating, so the ideal scenario is that somebody with genius level is kind of motivated by this other environment to be more pragmatic about what they do, what they are concentrating on inventing. And because of the long arc that it takes to have something approved, you have to be really ambitious and aim for the stuff that will be still novel feeling in 10 years from now.
So big companies have geniuses too. So what kind of advantage do you guys
well,
have?
they don't unleash them, and they don't also, they're not willing to revisit everything every couple of days.
Okay, so I haven't asked any of these questions to the panelists before yet, so they're reacting in real time. I'm sure that you guys have thought about this. Obviously, there's some parallels with the type of businesses that were on the big company panel at the beginning. If you could do a deal with any one of the guys that presented in the first panel, who would you do a deal with, and what would that be? What would that look like? Right.
Where our inflection point is going to be where we move from these sort of one single proving partners to distribution partners, because we want to be the doorway of the industry, or the Qualcomm, shall we say. And we're looking for companies that do not actually think they're in the algae business today, but they will be in the near future because they're Halliburton. Halliburton will run these huge sites. And so these people are on our sites, and we're just basically kind of getting our momentum so that essentially we're the beautiful girl in the room and they will come to us.
Everybody can relate to that. Jeremy, what deal would you guys do? Either on the panel.
Well, it's an interesting question because we've already done it. Right. We have 2 distinct businesses. Our actually building vehicles from the ground up, and our drivetrain business. It's advantageous for us. It's great that Nissan is in the space. It's great that there's other one of my favorite quotes was when Bob Lutz said, looking at Tesla, these guys can do it. Why can't we do it? And that was the start of the Chevy Bolt. And so our second business is our drivetrain business. Daimler, the owner of Mercedes, invested in us relatively early on. Right around the time Roadster actually went into production in 2008, and they wanted to utilize our technology to start in their smart car in Europe, which we have a number on the road now in Europe. And the other big one is Toyota. Toyota invested $50 million in Tesla Motors last year, really for 2 reasons. One, we're supplying drivetrains for some of their vehicles, and the other reason was that Akito Toyota was very interested in the passion of our organization, how quickly we're able to move. Obviously, and it's part of Toyota getting back to its roots, trying to go back to being a real fast-moving, innovative company.
All right, so looking into the future, right? Matt talked about what's going to happen in the world of television, what that's going to be like for consumers. As automotive changes, can you and Riggs coexist, or does only one of you want to do that?
Oh, we love electrical. Here's why. It will come from CO2 emissions at power plants. Very difficult to absorb CO2 from all these individual vehicles. If these vehicles are all clean, we're going to have a huge footprint of CO2 in power plants, many more will be built. For us, that's a good thing because it's a stationary place where we can have 10,000 acres of algae, or whatever it is, to suck up the CO2 and create, beneficial fuel.
All right, Francis, I think it's a little bit of a layup, but what deal would you do?
Of course. Where's the St. Jude guy? For us in the medical strategic partnerships, are critical to our success because obviously, not obviously, but currently in the last few years, IPOs are not faring very well. And the exit is either you grow a company very, very large or you go to a strategic that your product line fits like a glove in what they have. And the reason you go to them is we're avoiding VC money early on. We'd rather have some corporate dollars in. There's less strings attached.
We're not offended by that at all. It's okay.
That's okay. It's early on. You know, nobody is investing in early stage. At this point, they're supporting their portfolio companies. So it makes more sense.
Although I would say that's starting to change in the economy at large. So, you know, IPOs are starting to get out there. So if you're an entrepreneur thinking about starting a company, the time is getting better to raise money.
Yeah, it was a dumb time to start, I'll tell you that right now. Since October 08.
Daniel, you guys are imaging.
Yeah, so
not diagnostic.
So it's diagnosis by imaging. So frankly, all the companies listed look pretty good to me. But I wanted to say something more general about the big companies because imaging, medical imaging, currently is severely dominated by extremely large companies. Right. So what happens next is decided that GE and Siemens and Philips and so forth, and that carries a few problems with it. Number one, there's very little input from either academia or the end users, including the clinicians. Number two, and this is not generally known, these methodologies, although extraordinarily successful, are starting to hit against the limits of the physics which is underlying them. Mm-hmm. So it's unlikely that any of them will improve by a factor of, let's say, 3 to 5 in the next 3 to 5 years. But optical imaging actually has that potential. So that's why they have
Great. All right, last question, then we'll open it up to questions from the audience. One of the things that the early panel talked about was the ability to fail. And that you have to be able to fail as an organization to learn and, you know, innovate and correct your mistakes. As a startup, how do you guys think about failure and whether or not you can afford to fail with limited capital and limited resources?
7 out of 10 startups fail, and that's the cold hard facts. And what you've got to do is have a plan B. And what's most important is what I've told investors, all the investors that are in our company, I don't mind losing my own personal money, but when I have someone else's skin in the game, that really bothers me. So what you do is plan B is you either decide if you're close to failing that you're going to go to a strategic and get what you can out of them or whatever. But failure happens. I've had one startup acquired by Medtronic. I've had one startup acquired by another Minneapolis company, Synovus Life Systems. I was part of one in the .com world because everyone had to try that. That was really fun. That one failed. So we'll see, but you've got to have a plan B. And
how about micro failures within the lifetime of the organization? Jeremy, how do you guys think about how you fail along the way?
We've had many bumps along the road to where we are today. I was thinking about one of our major ones. We had a transmission builder that completely failed us with no plan B, which set us back about 9 months. And when time is of the essence, it's challenging. But we're definitely, Elon Musk, our CEO, he's an incredibly driven and talented individual and very much an all-in type of guy. Failure is not an option, and that's our mantra.
How do you guys think about it, Daniel? It's obviously tricky in life sciences. Fail, people could die.
Well, micro failures in the process of development are okay because you learn a lot, including about yourself. But obviously, the device can never fail, and therefore you have to build it really well. It seems to me that 7 in 10 failing is a statistic, and we hate statistics. I think they have done a serious disservice to the medical research statistics.
Can I add one comment?
Yeah, sure.
You said you're talking about product failure, which is completely different from company failure. We are so regulated by the FDA. We have so many tests that we have to go through. First, of course, bench testing, and then animal testing, and then human testing. That by the time you do get those clearances from the FDA and in Europe, and the EU, your CE mark, you shouldn't have a product fail. But of course,
you read about it all the time.
Sure.
Briggs, how do you?
Well, Scott, the ability to fail is built right into the design of our company. Our backers launch companies
where the only essential person is the CEO. And it's a segment plan. So in our case, it's algae, and my mandate was, you're the CEO, go find a technology. And if that one doesn't work, get another one, another one, another one, until you can find traction. So we're, in a sense, a very small PJ frontier that is built for a specific segment.
Sequential portfolio.
Exactly, for a specific.
What number are you on right now?
Well, what happened was, it's interesting because we don't have any quote-unquote failures per se, but we're up to about technology number 8, and then we had to start killing off babies, even though they were promising. So, and there were camps that loved the babies. So what we had to do was just hack away. Long before they might have failed. I think maybe 2 or 3 or 4 of these were prospective failures. They're gone.
It's powerful imagery to wind up the panel. Hacking off the babies. No. All right, do we have questions from the audience? Do we have time for questions? I think we have a couple minutes. We're going to get you guys out of here most of the time.
My question is for you. Obviously, your companies are really innovative. You're coming up with new ideas all the time. And obviously, sometimes there isn't much stopping your competitors from taking and adopting your innovations. What do you do exactly to make sure that your innovations are protected from your competitors? And if they are adopted, what do you do to make sure you have a competitive advantage?
I don't like starting that at all. Lawyers. We have nothing more important than intellectual property. And you make a nice picket fence around your own technology, and every single idea that you have that is remotely similar, or that is going to be a blocking patent for another competitor you get. And you spend money on that, and that's where a lot of money goes.
Any other views?
Yeah, well, I absolutely agree. Our company has a tremendous number of patents on our battery technology, on our integration of systems, to allow us to keep a competitive advantage.
And then if you can afford it, by the time they copy whatever you have, you should have something better than that.
Riggs?
Well, I actually don't have a lot of faith in patents. First of all, the real cost is technology disruption for the space you're in. So, first of all, these patents, Tatiana, are great to have. That'll lock them in. But what you got to do is get that market share and get the partners. Now, let's say, for example, you're in China. They will steal, right? But they can never steal your future products. They can only steal the past. And so if you have channel partners and strategic partners that are part of your future pipeline, then they are the privileged ones who have access to your future. So if you have an innovation environment in your company, you're constantly inventing and patenting, for sure, and improving, then you will continue to have this leadership position. Amazon gets stolen from, right? But they've got such momentum, as you were saying, Doctor, that they can't be taken away.
I will say there's a lot of debate about this in the venture capital world. There are VCs who love patents and want to see you invest as much as possible in it. And there are other folks, us included, who actually don't put a lot of credibility behind it. Because when you're a small company, if someone violates your patents, you don't have enough money or time to pursue the lawsuit. You'll be out of business by the time you get a judgment.
That's true.
So, in life sciences, they're probably worth more than they are in clean tech or in software or IT. But I think that's going to change too, because the rate of innovation is increasing in life sciences. Other questions? There's someone in the back.
A question for Dr. Farkas. Your technology allows us to be able to detect diseases much earlier than conventional or currently available technologies are. But what would you like to see happen first in your company to be able to bring that innovative and really useful technology to the masses?
Well, the hurdles to be overcome, some logistics, some regulatory and so forth, but if you really believe that the way that today things are done needs to be changed, then you will find a way, I think. And so what we are doing is we took a technology that was basically introduced by NASA to find, it was satellite spying and NASA kind of activities, and it's to find very difficult to find objects. And that's basically early disease. It's very different from normal. If you have a high enough level of technology, you'll be able to separate it out and basically distinguish what you would like to look at. It turns out that it's something that is not done today in the clinic. What we do is we kind of navigate the body, and we take a piece of tissue and we take it to the pathologist that looks at it like 100 years ago and comes back with some sort of a pronouncement. That needs to change, and I think that the younger pathologists actually would admit that, because they already grew up with computers and video games and so forth. And I think the whole paradigm needs to be changed, that there's no reason why you cannot detect something of interest in the body early, and that's really the best way of fighting major disease. And the more complicated the disease like cancer and neurodegeneration, the more you have to find it early. So I think it's a very, very appealing place to be, and anything that you do that is high quality will help.
You can change the way pathologists behave. That's a real disruption.
That is a real disruption.
They don't like to change.
But you know, they make all the decisions in the clinic.
That's right.
So it's really scary. It's amazing that any of us that have spent serious time in a hospital survive.
It's interesting. It's interesting when you get underneath it that actually might be where the real disruption is. Oh, one more question in that.
This is mostly for Jeremy, just because of your product, but what role in a startup does marketing come into play? Because, I mean, even with Tesla, I think a lot of what we hear and see about it is mostly because of the buzz you guys generate versus more of a push marketing type strategy. So I was just wondering, or even the plans coming up, do you guys have like a broad marketing scheme you're ready to start rolling out with? Or?
It's a very interesting question. We actually, we spend next to no money on marketing.
Lots of PR.
We're a technology-driven company that relies on PR and innovative co-branded marketing strategies to achieve market penetration. I mean, we do very interesting things that cost nothing to do, from partnering with test drives at venture capital firms. I mean, we're a very grassroots organization when it comes to marketing.
I was going to say Tim Draper's done a lot of marketing for you guys.
Yeah, it's the way we're able to keep costs down, and nearly all of our money goes into the research and development, technology development, and not into marketing dollars.
Well, great questions. Let's thank the panelists.